My name is Eleanor Mitchell, or at least, that's what people have known me as for. The past 2 years in reality I am Eleanor Rose Reynolds Mitchell, the rightful heir to the Reynolds Group, one of the largest corporate empires in the country. However, for the past 2 years, no one in the company knew the truth except for the chief financial officer and my father. Everything changed 2 years ago when my father suffered a heart attack. As the president of the company, he had always carried the weight of our family legacy on his shoulders. That night in the hospital, as I sat by his bedside holding his frail hand, he made an unusual request. "Eleanor, I need you to do something for me, for the company," he whispered, his voice weak but resolute. "Of course, Dad," I said, my heart tightening at the sight of him, so vulnerable. "I want you to work your way up from the bottom," he continued, "without anyone knowing who you really are." I stared at him, stunned. "Why, Dad, I just finished my MBA abroad. I was expecting to join the board." He sighed, his tired eyes filled with something deeper than just concern. "Because the company is sick, Hija, not with numbers, but with people. I need you to see what I can't see from the top." And so my life as Eleanor Mitchell began. I took my mother's maiden name and entered Reynolds Corp as an administrative assistant, armed with carefully prepared documents that masked my true identity. I became just another employee, unnoticed and unimportant. What I discovered over the next 2 years opened my eyes to the reality my father had suspected. The Human Resources Department, under the control of Ryan Mendoza, was a breeding ground for nepotism and abuse, but the real dagger to the heart was discovering that my sister-in-law Valerie, my brother Edgar's wife, was the deputy director. On my first day, I got my first taste of their corruption. Valerie, who hadn't seen me in the 5 years I had been away studying, didn't recognize me. She looked me up and down with barely concealed disdain. "Another union recommendation," she muttered to Ryan. "Put her in the back somewhere. She won't be a nuisance." I was given the most menial tasks: filing papers, making coffee, taking messages, but in doing so I gained access to conversations and information that no one bothered to hide from a mere assistant. It wasn't long before I uncovered the full extent of their scheme. Ryan and Valerie had turned promotions into a business. Raises were handed out in exchange for special contributions, and those who dared to complain mysteriously found themselves on the next layoff list. "It's just the corporate game, Karita," Valerie once told me over lunch, unaware of who I really was. "The weak serve the strong. It's the law of nature." My brother Edgar, the company's vice president, remained completely blind to his wife's actions, or I thought bitterly he chose not to see them. For months I documented every irregularity, every bribe, every cent siphoned away. My father, who had since recovered, monitored my investigation from a distance. "Patience, Eleanor," he reminded me during our secret meetings. "Let them feel safe." Then things took a turn for the worse. Catherine, a co-worker and single mother of 3, was fired for poor performance after rejecting Ryan's advances. I found her crying in the restroom the day she packed her things. "I have to pay for my kids' school," she sobbed. "What am I going to do?" That night I couldn't sleep. By morning I had made my decision. I confronted Ryan about hit like on this video. Catherine's unjust dismissal. "Who do you think you are?" He spat, his face turning red with rage. "You're a nobody. You should be grateful you even have a job." Valerie, standing beside him, smirked. "I told you, Ryan," she said, her voice dripping with contempt. "These nobies always think they have rights." The entire office fell silent. Some employees looked at me with pity, others with fear, knowing they could be next. "Since you care so much about justice," Ryan sneered, his voice rising so everyone could hear, "why don't you join Catherine? You're fired. It will be my pleasure to process your severance package," Valerie added with a triumphant smile. That was when I decided enough was enough. I reached into my bag and pulled out my real identification, the one that identified me as Eleanor Reynolds Mitchell, CEO and majority shareholder of Reynolds Group. "I think there's been a mistake," I said calmly. "The ones who are fired are you too." The silence was deafening. Ryan's face drained of color, his anger shifting into sheer panic, but it was Valerie's reaction that captured everyone's Attention, no, no, it's not possible, she stammered, stumbling backward. Eleanor is in Europe, Edgar told me, so I came back. 2 years ago, Kenyatta, I replied, emphasizing the word, right around the time you started your little extortion business. Just then the elevator doors opened. My father entered, followed by the CFO and a team of auditors. Valerie turned pale. Dad, she asked, her voice cracking. My father, despite leaning on his cane, stood tall. I was surprised too. He said when Eleanor showed me the evidence, Ryan tried to salvage the situation. Mr. Reynolds, I can explain. Explain what? I interrupted, pulling out a fold of the training fees you charged employees, or the fake contracts with companies you secretly owned. Valerie lunged for the exit, but security was already blocking the doors. Desperate, she called my brother. Edgar, you need to come now. Minutes later, Edgar arrived, confused by the chaos. What is going on? He asked, looking between his wife and me. I came back 2 years ago, Edgar, I said. Long enough to watch your wife and Ryan destroy the company our father built. As the police arrived to arrest them, Valerie hissed, I'll ruin you. I met her gaze. You have nothing left. Edgar turned to me, his face filled with regret. I didn't know. You didn't want to. No, I replied. My father placed a hand on my shoulder. Now we rebuild, not from the top but from the bottom. The way Eleanor taught us. I turned to the subscribed to revenge scales employees who were still watching in stunned silence. Starting today, I announced things will be different, but I need you to trust me. The months that followed were intense. The news of the arrests quickly spread to the media, and soon headlines blared. Undercover heir exposes corruption in business empire. But I had bigger concerns than the press. My first official act as CEO was to reinstate all employees who had been unjustly fired. Catherine was the first to return, this time as the new director of human resources. Are you sure? She asked when I offered her the position. I don't have an MBA or any big connections. You have something better, I replied. Integrity and real experience with what the employees go through. Edgar took an indefinite leave of absence, needing time to reflect on his failures, as he put it. Before leaving, he handed me a letter. Don't read it now, he said. Read it when everything has settled. The trial against Ryan and Valerie exposed the full extent of their corruption. They had stolen over $3 million through their extortion scheme, but the most valuable thing they had taken was the dignity of the employees. During the hearings, dozens of workers testified about years of abuse and manipulation, stories of broken families, crushed dreams, and ruined careers. Each testimony was a painful reminder of why my father had insisted I see the company from the ground up. Valerie tried to negotiate from prison. I can give you names of other corrupt executives, she offered during one of my visits. We can make a deal. You don't get to make deals anymore, sister-in-law, I replied. Your time for that is over. The final sentence was harsh. 8 years in prison for both of them, along with the full restitution of the stolen money. But the real justice came in the form of systemic change. We implemented a transparent management system. Every HR decision, every promotion, every salary increase now had to go through a committee made up of employees from different levels of the company. It's inefficient, some of the older executives complained. It takes too much time. Justice takes time, I answered, but injustice destroys everything in seconds. With the recovered money, we created an education fund. Employees' children could now apply for scholarship, something Valerie had once used as a tool for manipulation. Months after the arrests, I finally opened Edgar's letter. Dear sister, the shame I feel is my greatest punishment, not only for being blind to Valerie's actions, but for forgetting the lessons Dad taught us about the responsibility that comes with the Reynolds name. You didn't just uncover corruption, you prove that there is a better way to lead from the ground up, with empathy, with justice. I don't deserve to be part of the company, not yet. I need to learn what you learned in these past 2 years. With regret and admiration, Edgar. The letter moved me, but not as much as what I found on my desk that morning. Dozens of small thank you notes from employees of how their lives had improved, how they could finally sleep at night without the fear of losing their jobs. 1 year after my revelation, we held a different kind of Celebration, not in the boardroom but in the company cafeteria. Employees from all levels sat at the same tables, including my father. Do you know the most valuable thing I learned in these 2 years? I asked him as we watched the genuine happiness on people's faces. What is it? My daughter, that real power isn't about making people fear you, it's about making them believe in themselves. Catherine approached us with a surprise. The employees had created an internal mentorship program where experienced workers helped new hires. We call it Project Eleanor, she explained with a smile, because you taught us that anyone can be a leader if they have their heart in the right place. Tears welled in my eyes, not because of the recognition, but because I finally understood why my father had insisted on his unusual request 2 years ago. Sometimes, he said, as if reading my thoughts, we need to lose our title to find our purpose. The company didn't just recover, it thrived. Our numbers improved, not because of fear or extortion, but because people worked with passion and purpose. The Reynolds name once again stood for integrity, not just power. And as for me, I kept my desk in the back of the office, note because I had to hide, but to remind myself where the true heart of a company lies. Don't you miss your executive office? Catherine asked me one day. I looked at the employees working with peace and dignity from here. I said, I can see what really matters. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the story, like the video and subscribe to our channel. This is the Twist Vault, where justice always finds its way. See you next time.